You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Live
at the studio of Worldwide Sports Radio.
All right, let's go.
It's the Third and Long Show. And here's your hosts, Matty Caps and KT Hepburn.
And welcome everybody to a brand new show of Third and Long here at the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. We are live in Hauppauge, New York. You got myself, Mr. Matty Caps, my co-host and producer, good friend, whatever you want to call him, comrade, Mr. Speedy Petey here as well. And boy, oh boy, do we have a lot of stuff to go over right in the sports world right now. And I'm going to tell you this right now. All I can do is just sit back and laugh at one particular team and one particular team only, because they just remind me of clowns. And I know people are still talking about the Super Bowl and all this stuff and whatnot, and I understand. But I want to step away from the Super Bowl, okay? And what I really want to talk about is the clowns over in Queens. They go by the New York Mets. And this song right here is just perfectly fitting for them. Keep this on, Speedy. I love it. This song is just perfect for them. They're clowns. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know why I'm calling them clowns right now, it's because rumors are reporting, okay, that Steve Cohen, who was going to be the majority owner in 5 years after the Wilpons gave it up, according to Mr. Rosenthal, Ken Rosenthal, he is backing out of becoming an owner of the garbage from Queens. And Speedy, when the news broke about 15 minutes ago, I was hysterically laughing. You were asking me what's going on, and I told you, and you just sat there with a smirk, and you just shook your head like you were in disbelief. But Speedy, I ask you this. Are the garbage from Queens clowns? Like, what is going on within that organization?
When you see the Knicks actually progress in something.
And we are going to be talking about the New York Knicks today as well.
And you still can't do it right. Just when there was some hope, 5 more years, and it seemed like they were going to be able to spend money. And all of a sudden something goes wrong in it. You look just as bad as they do. That's hard to do. With all the corruption the Knicks have had, you're looking at that level now. At least they were having some good player development. At least they were having some postseason trips. And then all of a sudden you just do things that are just classic Mets. I don't know who had the more influence in
all right, don't worry about the music anymore. I just wanted to play it for the beginning.
In derailing him from signing there or buying into it. I don't know what it was the main purpose of it. But whoever it was, you knew you had to keep him there.
And
whoever
listen,
it was, you just had to make sure this would work, and of course it didn't.
And listen, Steve Cohen backing out of the Mets. Speedy, didn't I call this? Like, with all you guys getting all excited about this and whatnot, didn't I tell you let's just wait to see what happens? And,
well, you were waiting to see what the percentage would actually be.
But I was also waiting to see when he becomes the actual owner, because I still didn't believe that was actually happening. And you look at it right now, okay? Ken Rosenthal, he's a very, very, very respected MLB reporter on Fox, okay? He's a senior writer for The Athletics, sports.com contributor.
Oh, yeah, he's
MLB.
He's essentially the Adam Schefter and Waj.
Yeah, he's an MLB network insider. And when he comes out and says 29 minutes ago, statements from the Mets ownership on reports that Steve Cohen is backing out of deal to purchase majority stake in the club. The parties are subject to confidentiality obligations, including a mutual non-disclosure agreement, and therefore cannot comment. This is something very, very, very fishy going on right now within the New York Mets organization. And yes, I'm going to call them the Mets right now. I'm not going to call them the garbage from Queens, even though I will eventually call them the garbage from Queens. I mean, how can I not call them that? But you look at this franchise and you look at the fans and what they've gone through. It is tough being a New York Met fan. I give all my friends who are very passionate about them. Speedy, you're one of them. You're very passionate about the garbage from Queens. See how I just snuck it in there, right?
Of course. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah, no, it's only a matter of time. But I see how passionate you are, and a lot of my friends are passionate. A lot of my friends actually don't even listen to the show anymore because I was calling them the garbage from Queens. They were not happy with me calling them the garbage from Queens. But they still listen, and I still call them garbage from Queens.
There's only one Met fan that likes you calling them the garbage from Queens.
The Beef.
Oh, he did?
No, he doesn't. I don't know.
It was Mike Rifkin. He was the only one.
Oh, yes, he enjoyed it. Oh, I miss Mike. But you sit back here, and you look at this organization as a whole. The Wilpons, a.k.a. the Coupons, they've done nothing positive for this organization. They made the World Series one time in 2015, okay? And they couldn't beat the Kansas City Royals in 2015, but nobody could beat the Kansas City Royals in 2015. From top to bottom, they were just a better team. But you look at what the Wilpons have done. Speedy, what can you do as a Met fan and just sit back and take it? Because the Wilpons have done absolutely nothing to get fans in the seats. They're very cheap on money. They don't spend money whatsoever. Like, what do you do? Like, how do you do it? That's what I got to ask. How do you do it?
The same thing I was hoping for the Knicks. Remember I said with the Knicks, I'm just hoping Spike Lee gets enough movies that he'll get enough money to buy it from James Dolan. I'll have to hope the same thing for the Mets. Maybe Jerry Seinfeld and Kevin James can combine to buy it or something like that.
Yeah, but you sit here and think, like, it's just weird that why all of a sudden 8 days, 7 days before pitchers and catchers have to report down in Florida, Arizona, or wherever they have to go, okay, that now he's all of a sudden going to back out of ownership of the New York Mets. There's something deeper within that for this to be happening. Don't you agree with that? There's something deeper. Something has to be going on within the organization.
Somebody swayed him the wrong way somehow. I don't know who it was, but there's something that he didn't like about the organization, and being that.
And that's the question.
There's something. All that money.
There's something he didn't like.
He could buy any other team.
So let me ask you this: there's obviously something that he didn't like. He's a crony of the Wilpons because he's worked for them and whatnot. He's known them for years. So, Speedy, let me ask you, do you think that it's possible that maybe the Wilpons have maybe shortchanged him, not giving him what they said at first, not doing a lot of the stuff they said they were going to do, and that made Steve Cohen just change his mind dramatically going forward for that? We have a caller or no?
No, was hung up.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever. Maybe they'll call back. But, Speedy, am I right or wrong, though? Like, you sit back here and think, like, there's got to be something for this to be happening. There's got to be something much more deeper within the organization. Are the Wilpons shortcharging him? Meaning that they're not giving him the percentage that he wants. Maybe they're not giving him the years until he could take over. Maybe he was told under false pretenses of what's going on within the organization. What are you doing over there? Are you trying to find what Ken Rosenthal said?
Yeah.
Well, just go to his Twitter page. It was
over here.
Yeah. Just go to his
I was just retweeting the show.
Oh, okay. But you look at all this stuff going on within the organization. What do you think it is, Speedy? What do you think it happened? I know it only happened 30 minutes ago, okay? But this is obviously something that's been going on for a little while because this doesn't just happen overnight. He doesn't just wake up and say, "Oh, I don't want to become the owner of the New York Mets anymore."
When you have money, you have power, unfortunately. So somebody had to derail it. Somehow it probably is something with the Wilpons or upper management. But again, most likely the Wilpons because they're the only other ones with money. Money they don't use for the team, of course. But
no, they don't spend money on the team.
But still, it's just something had to derail it. And again, that's the most likely cause right now. And of course, they have to put their hands on everything because that's who they are.
It really is almost like a clown show, though, because I just sit back here and I think, I'm like, thank the Lord one of my sports teams is run well. And I don't even think that it's run that great. I said well in the New York Yankees. They're run well.
They're run well, I think.
But again, they could be doing so much better. And Speedy, I've said this 100,000 times, and you could agree with me with this. If George Steinbrenner was alive, there would have been plenty of moves that didn't happen that would have happened in the past with the New York Yankees.
I think it's definitely possible. I also think, though, again, it would be still something that other high-market teams are still overspending, whether it's realistic or not, and that's where the bad contracts have come in for teams like the Red Sox in the past, the Phillies, the Rangers, teams like that. So we'll see. It's definitely possible where that could have been the case.
Well, that's the whole thing. It is definitely possible, and that's why I really feel that this subject is much deeper than what we're reading and stuff. And like Ken Rosenthal said, there's confidentiality agreements between both of them, which I don't understand why there's a confidentiality agreement between them. They are close friends. They've worked together for years. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But for this to be happening, okay, right now, 7 days before pitchers and catchers, this is not a good look for the organization. And don't get me wrong, the organization hasn't had a good look in a very, very long time. Maybe since the 2015 season when they went to the World Series. Maybe then you could have said they had a good look. But until then, they haven't had a good look whatsoever since then. And it's been almost 5 years at least, okay? You look at this New York Mets garbage from Queens team this year, and you look at this starting rotation, I'll be honest with you. In all of baseball, this starting rotation of the New York Mets to me with DeGrom, Syndergaard, Stroman, Matz, and Porcello, I think might be a top 5, top 7, top 8. If it's healthy, a top 5, top 8 pitching staff in all of baseball, not just the National League.
How many years have we said that, though?
100%. Because let's be real here. The MO of the New York Mets is that they win the World Series after April. They go 14-1. They go 14-2 in April. All their fans thinking they're going to the World Series. They win the World Series. And like Jeff from Tampa, he's 100% right. The New York Mets season doesn't start until the first injury occurs. Because once the first injury
last year
occurs,
that happened before April. So
before the first injury occurs, okay, is when the Mets are good.
Oh yeah, but that happened before April last year.
That was an anomaly last year. Okay. This team, on paper, their pitching staff is still very good. I look at the other position players. Robinson Cano is not an everyday player anymore. You and I could both agree with that. Do you really trust Jeff McNeil at third base?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jeff McNeil was somebody I wasn't sure of last year, but him doing.
Do you trust him or Jed Lowry more?
Oh, Jeff McNeil. Easily.
Okay.
Jed Lowry is a very phasey player. Even with the Red Sox, he had maybe a year or two.
What about Ahmed Rosario?
And then he had the one
at
good
short
year in Oakland. I expect him to keep progressing. I think he progressed nicely in the second half. I think he really evolved as a guy that he had a lot of strikeout problems to begin his career. Wasn't walking much. He was walking a lot more in the second half of the season. I think his contact hitting ability as a whole improved. His defense, I think he has range. It's just a matter of the arm, and I think he makes some mental mistakes. Kind of like what you saw with Gleyber Torres when he first came up. That was his first month. He was having trouble with defense. I think Ahmed Rosario's kind of been the same way. I don't think he has the range that Torres has, but I think it's similar in terms of he's just making some mental mistakes.
Which, 100% right. He could be just making mental mistakes.
But McNeil, I definitely trust. It was more of I was skeptical of him last year, but he was top 5 in batting average in the National League. He improved as well as Rosario. He improved at walking a lot more in the second half and power. He improved a lot in the second half, which I don't think anyone was expecting.
Mm-hmm. And now it brings me back to Steve Cohen, because this team on paper is not bad. It doesn't help that they play in one of the toughest divisions in baseball. And Speedy, I'm going to repeat that all throughout the baseball season, because I actually believe that they play in the toughest division in baseball. I think
it's either that or probably the NL Central.
I was going to say the Central, yeah. but I think it beats out the NL Central. I think it's by far the toughest division in baseball. Okay. And you look at Steve Cohen. Steve Cohen was talking about how he was going to bring back the dynamic of back to Queens. He was going to go out there and possibly buy players, which something the coupons, the Wilpons have never done before. This team needs some new blood. They need some new ownership because, and I've said this over and over again, and I say this about the Dallas Cowboys too. As long as Jerry Jones is still in charge of the Dallas Cowboys, the Cowboys will never win a championship. As long as the Wilpons are the owners of the New York Mets, they will never win a championship. They need to get new blood in there and new blood quickly so the fans can have something to cheer about after April 30th. Seriously. They need something to cheer about after April 30th. They do. Because after April 30th, let's be real, Speedy. How does the season go after April 30th?
Hey, they had false hope in July, too.
Okay, yes, because they went on that 14-game win streak, and we thought the manager was going to keep his job with that 14-game win streak or whatever it was. But, I mean, you look at it, it's always false hope with them. I sincerely ask you, Speedy, how is it being a Met fan? Like, it can't be enjoyable.
No, it is not. I mean, it's something that you have your passion for, and it's something you just got to go through the questionable, hard times that always happen with that team. And at this point, you're just used to it, especially with the injuries, and you're used to them just, again, being cheap, and you're just hoping that somebody can develop in the farm system finally, and they've done a little better with that in terms of developing position players now, and that's a good sign at least, but again, they're just having trouble in other areas. Bullpens hindered them for years, with the exception of the two playoff years they had this decade. The bullpens hindered them for years, and injuries.
But that's the thing. Adding Della Betances, if he could stay healthy, that adds a ginormous arm to that bullpen who, let's be real, Diaz didn't have his best season last season. He was awful, actually, according to his numbers. He was awful last season. Seth Lugo was
He was good.
Okay, more on the better side.
Yeah.
Yuri's Familia,
God, I didn't like that contract from the start.
But that's the thing, and now you look at the bad contracts and stuff. But what do you think about like Justin Wilson?
I like Justin Wilson.
And Brad Brock. Like, what do you think of those guys?
I always liked Justin Wilson.
You did,
thought
okay.
He was one of the most underrated lefties in baseball.
Which is very important in this day and age of baseball.
Yeah, another guy that is versatile. Another guy that I think was good for a while, and nobody realized it with the Pirates going back to when they were a playoff team for a while. He was a valuable piece to that bullpen. He's versatile in where he could close. He could do multiple innings. He could, again, do setup roles, 7th inning, 6th inning. He could do all different kinds of things. He's not just a specialist. Usually when you think of a lot of lefties that aren't closers, you think of them as specialists, but he's not. Again, his problem has just been, one, a little bit of consistency issues, just him being bumped around from team to team. I think he's had trouble. And two, he's had some injury problems later in his career as well. But I've always liked him. Brock, we'll see. I liked him for his versatility too. He was decent with the Mets. We'll see what he ends up doing because he was bad with the Cubs. I forget where he was after he left the Orioles. There was a team in between. I want to say the Diamondbacks, but I don't remember off the top of my head. And he was okay with them. So we'll see if he can get back to the form he was with the Orioles. Because remember, when he was closing, when Britton was hurt in 2017, I think it was, he was actually doing well. So he's another guy who's versatile. We'll just have to see how consistent he is.
And that's the thing. And you look at this bullpen. Do you honestly feel deep down in your heart, Speedy, that if Steve Cohen did take over, that he would stick to his words and go buy people and go make the trades to better the team regardless of the money situation?
Well, the trades would have to be dependent on what's available with their farm system still, because you still need assets regardless. But in terms of the money situation, yeah, I definitely believe it. Now, what he would have spent it on, I don't know. The game could change a lot for between now and 5 years. We don't know what direction it's going in. There's always going to be analytics, but we don't know what the analytic trends will be at that time. Is it still going to be a bullpen game? Is it still going to be something where it's a home run-oriented league, or could it shift back to something else? We don't know. Baseball is a very phasey game. We had the steroid era, then it went back to a pitching era. It went back to, again, a good hitting era, then it went back to a pitching era again. So what will it be in 5 years? What would it have been? And the other thing, too, is, again, you could spend money all you want, but are you going to spend it right is the other question.
And that's the whole
and
question.
that's where other franchises have been held back from rebuilding or fulfilling their rosters, looking at teams like the Tigers, who are awful now.
And they're still going to be awful.
But again, that's because they spent a lot on bad contracts, and their farm system wasn't good, so they've had trouble. When the game transitioned into that, they've had trouble just rebuilding because of that. The Angels the same way. They can't build a team around Mike Trout. The Rangers, certain other teams that have spent big contracts have had trouble rebuilding their teams as a result. The Phillies, when they paid their core after the 2008 World Series, after they paid those guys, they had trouble rebuilding for a while too. So I think baseball shifted to more smart spending. Still big money, but it's more smart spending. We'll see where it ends up being in 5 years. But yeah, you definitely would have had more of an influence than the Wilpons regardless.
Mm-hmm. And that's the whole thing. But ladies and gentlemen, that is the news going forward, is that Steve Cohen is backing out of being the majority owner in 5 years of the New York Mets. We're gonna stay steady with this story going forward, as I'm sure more news will be coming out. But according to Ken Rosenthal, he's backing out. There's no other words to say except he's backing out, and there's a confidentiality agreement that they have that nothing is being spoken of. So we don't know any news except the news that we're hearing, that he's backing out of the sale of the New York Mets. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to a quick break here at the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, and when we do come back from break, we're going to step aside of Major League Baseball, as I really didn't want to get into it. I wanted to really get into baseball next week. We're going to get into a little bit of the NBA. Finally, some good news for the New York Knicks on what they did today. For now, it is to step in the right direction. And I want to talk about other stuff. John Morant, Dylan Brooks, what they had to say about Andre Iguodala. I want to talk about the Lakers and the Clippers a little bit. But we're going to get into that when we come back here at the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. You are listening to the Third and Long Show. And here's your hosts, Matty Caps and KT Hepburn.
1-845-478-3272 is the number to reach us here at the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are finally going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the NBA. And as a Knicks fan, I know I could not be happier with what's going on right now with the New York Knicks. Finally, some good news within the organization. And Speedy, I'm going to ask you this. I'm going to have you take this first. Steve Mills finally was fired this morning from the organization. Obviously now Scott Perry will oversee the basketball operations in the interim, the team said. But this has been a long time coming, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's somebody who's been in different positions for a while. Again, franchises like familiarity. That's a commonality in all of sports, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. We see good organizations bring back guys that they let go of and trust with certain styles that they like to incorporate, coaches, GMs, whatever. But there's also franchises that try familiarity when it doesn't work, and the Knicks were one of them that tried Mills in that different role, thought he earned it for a while.
He definitely never earned it once.
Well, I'm not saying it was good logic. I'm saying that's what their logic was for a while. And maybe just thinking, all right, maybe the players are familiar with him, the style is familiar with him, so they tried it. And it's just one of those things where he overstayed his welcome. And finally, the Knicks maybe made that progression in saying, all right, we need to build this team a different way and try something new.
And that's the whole thing. I could not be happier as a Knicks fan to see finally James Dolan doing the one thing right, at least in his tenure as the New York Knicks owner. He's finally doing something right by getting rid of him. Next on the docket is Scott Perry. I hope Scott Perry goes very soon as well, because he's done absolutely nothing. But the question remains right now is, where do the New York Knicks go from here? Who do they target? Who do they go after? That is the huge question right now, burning down on the New York Knicks. And you look at James Dolan, for as long as I can remember, he has coveted Toronto Raptors president Masai Ujiri, okay? to run the franchise's basketball operations. But obviously, complications involving Ujiri's contract status and New York's reluctance to surrender a draft pick consideration, okay, is a turning stone, is a jumping stone that they're going to have to get over, okay? But make no mistake, James Dolan wants Masai Ujiri more than anything. And I don't know what he's going to be willing to give up to get him. But I will tell you this. James Dolan, if you ever hear this from a Knicks fan, if you ever give up a first-round draft pick for a guy that doesn't even play the game of basketball, I will murder you.
Now, here's a question, though. Let's say the Knicks trade veteran pieces and this trade deadline and are able to get a first-round pick out of it, whether it's a late first-round pick, middle, for maybe a playoff team that maybe gets knocked out of the first round that isn't a lottery pick, for example. For a GM that has built a very good team in Toronto and has done a great job even without Kawhi Leonard this year, and again, they've been even when they were a choke-prone playoff team before, even though they made the playoffs for 6 straight years before they even won the title. You wouldn't do that, giving them just like one late round pick?
Absolutely not.
Even if it's like the last pick of the first round or something like
The
that?
New York Knicks need all the help they can get. Giving up first-round draft picks come at a premium. I mean, maybe if you put it like that, the last pick of the first round, so number 30.
Right, so let's say they trade Julius Randle or something to a team. Let's say they trade Julius Randle to a team like Milwaukee, and Milwaukee makes the NBA Finals. You wouldn't trade that pick, for example, to get a GM that's pretty high profile.
I mean,
right now?
I would have to take that into consideration, obviously. But again, you still find some gems in the late first round draft pick, in the late first round of the NBA draft. So
true, that is fair to an extent. But when have the Knicks really done that? And
well, the Knicks never do that because James Dolan is still at the helm, and the GMs and the president of basketball and all this nonsense. They don't know what the hell they're doing.
Correct.
So it really doesn't even matter.
So wouldn't you want a guy that maybe has a better chance at finding those gems to at least get that, rather than having to try to sacrifice one?
I'm
pick?
not willing to give up a lot to go get someone who doesn't even play the game.
I never said a lot. I said one pick.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, I'm not willing to give up a lot. And maybe the late first round, like 29, 30, 30th pick, I would possibly give up to get Masai Ujiri. Okay, Ujiri or whatever his name is. Okay? Maybe.
Now, again, I am not saying I would do it impulsively. I'm not saying the Knicks should trade Julius Randle for a first-round pick to a playoff team and then all of a sudden just make the move right now. No, I want to see where the pick is, because you're right. If it's a playoff team or a team that maybe collapses down the stretch and the pick becomes earlier or something like that, or you get 2 of them and you could probably package the trade up for another pick this year. We don't know what the case could be. I wouldn't do it impulsively. And again, I also would want to see what GMs are available and interested as well that might not be under contract, that, again, maybe have one more year left, or maybe they think, all right, the Knicks are going to pay me this money. I'll take on this challenge. I'll gamble on it. We'll see who's available. I don't know much about the names of NBA general managers. I know, again, I'll know what teams they're from and if they built the style of basketball that wins in today's league. But I wouldn't do it impulsively. I'm just saying if that's the best offer available and Masai Ujiri is the best GM by a long shot, I wouldn't mind sacrificing one late pick for a guy that has built many different styles of basketball. One, Raptors were an offensive team for a while, then now they're kind of more of a defensive team. So they have different styles, and it seems like they've evolved with the game. I wouldn't mind giving up one pick, because the Knicks aren't going to make a difference with one pick because they need so much. I wouldn't mind gambling on that one pick for a GM that's had a good track record.
I mean, maybe. Again, with the way you put it and being like the last pick or right around there, maybe, just maybe I would do something like that. But again, if I have 2 first-round draft picks this year, I don't know if I'm willing to give them up right now for Masai Ujiri. And that's just my personal belief, and you have a different one, which is fair.
And also depends on the strength of the draft. I don't know how deep this draft is right now, but from what I'm hearing, it's pretty top-heavy, so...
It is top heavy, like the top 4 or 5 guys, and then from there on out, it's nothing really spectacular. But you look at what James Dolan has done so far, And this is a step in the right direction for the New York Knicks. If you're a New York Knicks fan, I know you're very excited about this situation right now. And according to Ramona Shelburne and Adrian Wojnarowski, James Dolan is considering a front office model that is similar to the ones that are in place with the Golden State Warriors and the LA Lakers. Two teams that have former player agents running the basketball operations department. Obviously, the model has worked in Golden State and Los Angeles because you're seeing it right now. The Warriors have won multiple championships under Bob Myers' leadership. Excuse me.
And Jerry West.
And Rob Pelinka. And the Lakers are one of the favorites to win the title this year. The Knicks, on the other hand, have not reached a postseason in 5 years.
Yep, since I was in high school.
They believed they were going to straighten things out when they hired Phil Jackson, but that turned out to be a disaster. And I'll be the first to admit it. I loved the move of Phil Jackson. I thought it was going to be a great hire for Phil Jackson coming over and being the president over there for the New York Knicks. And it was just set us back even more years hiring him because he was absolutely awful.
Just because you can coach doesn't mean you can be a
exactly. But James Dolan is obviously reportedly eyeing one of the best executives in the NBA in Masai Ujiri. But there are a lot of reasons the Knicks owners probably won't get him. Hiring a former player agent would not be a bad idea. And though that obviously depends on the person. So let me ask you, Speedy.
Yes, because that clearly
do you
worked.
think that's a good idea or do you think that's a bad idea?
Yeah, let's see how it's working for the Mets right now, hiring an agent to be
different
the
sport.
Yeah, I mean, still,
different sport.
It's not somebody that's gonna know knowledge, most likely, of young players, of building a team. Because I know the NBA is a player-run league now, so hiring an agent in NBA might be a little more beneficial. But again, you still have to get it past one, James Dolan, two,
which would never happen.
Right, players have rejected him for years now, so. Even if their agent is quote-unquote there, how much is that really going to make a difference? Because, again, max contracts are max contracts. They're all the same. It's not like, all right, Steph Curry got this and I outperformed him this year, which doesn't happen all the time. I'm just using it as a basis. I want this much more money. Those are more what NFL contracts are like when you look at quarterback contracts, pass rushers, offensive linemen, stuff like that. NBA is not really like that. It's just, are you eligible for a max? Are you eligible for supermax? That's what it is, really, and then it's just a matter of who you're playing with and where you're going. And that's going to be hard to come by. That's why I think the Knicks really need to have a kind of a hybrid philosophy. They need to have a philosophy of teams that have rebuilt and built through the draft, built through good second-round picks, built through good basketball concepts, and built through the most common thing any basketball team needs, ball movement. The Knicks don't do that. They just need to build like that, and then maybe once they build like that, then they can say, all right, then players can look at the Knicks and say, all right, they're actually looking like they're stable. They're looking like they have a basketball team in place, a team that is actually playing good team basketball. And that's where I think then you'll land the free agent later. But hiring an agent to do that who I just don't know, him working with money and him working with, again, certain star players, I don't know if that would be the right fit.
You look at Steve. You look at Mr. Mills right now. Since rejoining the Knicks in 2013, the franchise has been 178 and 365, the worst record in the NBA, according to ESPN stats and information.
I think the only year they had a winning season was that first year that Jackson was there.
Yeah,
where they were the first team out of the playoffs.
Yeah, didn't they lose to the Pacers that year in 2013?
No, I'm not talking about the year they made the playoffs. I'm talking about the year after.
Gotcha.
The year after that year, when the Knicks were 57 wins. That was the year they lost to the Pacers. That was the year before they hired Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson's first year, they were the first team out. They missed it by a game or a tiebreaker or something to the Hawks. I think they were 43 and 39 though. I think they did have a winning record, and then after that, it's an all losing records.
And you could look at it right now. This is the first step in the right direction for the New York Knicks by getting rid of him because no free agents want to come here. Everybody and their mother thought that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving were on their way and instead chose Brooklyn. And then Mills decided to fire Fizdale, which he thought would save his job, which I think Fizdale got the crap end of the stick. But that's just my opinion. And he did this.
The interim coach hasn't been that bad so far.
He's 11-18. He's not much better. I mean,
right, but it's considering that it's a rebuilding team, 11-18, it could be a lot worse.
but I mean, then you look at what Mills has done. He pivoted to sign veteran players to short-term contracts. Okay, and then he later insisted that those were the players that the Knicks were targeting all along. The Knicks are headed for a 7th consecutive season with a losing record and no playoff appearance. Like, this is not good for the New York Knicks.
Well, we knew that anyway. Unless they were even if they were able to land Durant, he was out for the whole year anyway. So,
and then you look at it like this: you fire your head of basketball operations day before a trade deadline that could define your immediate future. After firing your head coach in December for not being able to create a respectable product out of a bunch of 21-year-olds and Julius Randle. And then you think you're going to go after the best executive in basketball as a Band-Aid for all your past and future sins? Brilliant. This is just like the New York Knicks. This is what they think is going to happen.
But when have they ever tried that, though, is the question.
Yeah, I mean, well, they're trying right now because they want Masai Ujiri. But I hate to break it to you, and I'm a realist when it comes to this. There is no chance in hell Masai Ujiri leaves the Toronto Raptors.
I don't think he does either. I'm just saying that I don't fault the Knicks for trying.
And the reason why is, though, because if you want to believe this is realistic, people will point out that nobody expected Ujiri to leave Denver in 2013 after winning an Executive of the Year, okay? But there's no chance in hell he's going to make this move to this organization. That's my take. Ujiri elevated himself to God status by bringing the Toronto Raptors and taking a chance on Kawhi Leonard, which he eventually left anyway, to their first ever NBA championship with, like I said, the Kawhi Leonard trade, which was risky. He's a cult hero now who could make 5 straight years of bad decisions and still be revered within the organization of the Toronto Raptors. 2 of the biggest contributors for that team of the Toronto Raptors and this year's squad was Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam, who were, again, unheralded products that Ujiri and his scouting team found all on their own. But, Speedy, what is your feelings on Masai Ujiri? You never really told me how you really feel about him.
I think he's a good GM. I'm not going to say great. He's a good GM. And, again, I think with the Raptors being, I wouldn't say a small market team, but a middle market kind of team. Toronto's a good sports city. Again, they're in Canada, though, so they're not going to be a big name in terms of money. I think he's built something good. Obviously, they won a title. And a lot of the depth that he was able to accumulate through drafts and through signings and just system fits, the bold moves he has made. He fired the coach, which I know you didn't like at the time, but I did. And they traded for Kawhi Leonard, which was obviously a gutsy move. He's been bold, and that shows he's just not afraid to take chances if he needs to, which is a good thing. And I think that end of it is interesting. And again,
I think he's one of the best.
I think the Knicks need to try something like that. The Knicks have tried to be the big market team. They've tried to lure in the free agents all the time. And then when they don't lure in the free agents, they settle for second-tier free agents, which ultimately have ended up becoming bad contracts for whatever reason. So I think the Knicks really need to know that, yeah, it's a player-run league. Yeah, it's still driven by free agency, but it hasn't worked for you. You have to try something to get them to lure them there. Now, James Dolan can still be James Dolan and have a problem with signing a free agent because they don't like him. But unfortunately, that stench will never go away. So you have to try something different to lure you there. And one of those things could be just building like a normal team, building like a team that isn't.
Well, that's the thing. You look at Masai Ujiri's pedigree. The year he left Denver, they finished 36-48 after the year before getting knocked out by the Warriors, okay, in the first round of the playoffs.
Right.
They were a good but not great team. Siakam, over in Toronto, he has the makings of a future star. And even newcomers like undrafted free agent Terrence Davis over there looks like he's better than anybody on the current Knicks roster. So what's the draw to leave Toronto? Is it because it's the New York City, it's its own stature, but it also comes with working.
Money too.
It also comes with working with you-know-who, James Dolan.
Right.
Okay? The only even slightly logical reason for Ujiri to leave is that if he's one of those people who always looks for the next big challenge, and let's be real here, there very well may be no greater challenge in basketball than resurrecting the New York Knicks. If Ujiri got complete, total, and utter control over every aspect of the organization in pursuit of that goal, then maybe, just maybe, he'd take that job. But let's be real here. There is no way in hell James Dolan would ever agree to any of that. And if he did, how could Ujiri trust him to give him the adequate time needed for such a comprehensive organizational overhaul? Whatever you might say about Dolan, he's definitely not patient. So again, Knicks and Knicks fans and everything about the New York Knicks, this is just a dream. Masai Ujiri will not be leaving Toronto anytime soon. This is just a dream going forward for the New York Knicks. But again, it is a step in the right direction getting rid of Mills. We're going to see what they do now to get in their position. Are they going to follow the agent to be running the basketball operations? We're just going to have to wait and see what James Dolan decides to do and Perry decides to do. Even though I want Scott Perry I want him to get the next pink slip. I want him out too. I want a new GM. I want a new director of basketball operations. I want someone that knows what they're doing because these guys are incompetent and they've shown for the past 5-6 years that they don't know what they are doing running the New York Knicks organization. And that's a problem because when you play in the mecca of basketball, you play in the biggest media market, you need to put out a product that can appeal to such situations. And the New York Knicks are not a product that is appealing at the moment. And it starts at the top with James frickin' Dolan. I hate him. I hate James Dolan with a passion, and I just can't take it. He is not a good owner. Him and Jerry Jones are tied for the worst owners in all
he's
sports.
Worse than Jerry Jones.
You think he's worse?
I think he's easily worse.
Well, don't get me
Jerry
wrong.
Jones.
I say this because I get it. Jerry Jones is a good businessman, okay? And he thinks he knows about putting the product on the field.
I think Jerry Jones still has some sense and talent, too. I know he's lost it from what he used to be, but I still think he has some sense and talent, even though it's more Stephen Jones, even though it's more, again, some of the executives that they've had. Jerry still has all the power, obviously, but he still has some smarts in that, whereas James Dolan, I don't think he really has smarts in the sports area that he should. At least Jerry Jones, he has power in that because, again, he unheraldly took a GM role. He unheraldly took a president of football operations role. So he has to know all that stuff. And, again, the Cowboys' talent evaluation has been iffy at times, but it also seems like the Cowboys have never had a below-average roster in a while either. So I think he has some smarts with that, whereas James Dolan, I just don't think anything. He knows anything, really, except he has a lot of money. Let's spend it. And if we don't get the free agent because, the free agents don't come because of you, that's a problem.
And that's a huge, huge problem within the New York Knicks organization.
And especially in a league, it's so free agent-driven, whereas the NFL is not really a free agency-driven league. It's, you'll get your free agents to fill your holes. You'll make good trades, and you mostly trade at the draft. The NBA, it seems like it's a player-run league ever since LeBron decided to take his talents to South Beach.
Yeah, and look at that. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to a quick break, and when we do come back from break, we're going to stay within the NBA. We're going to talk about Ja Morant and Dillon Brooks next, and if we have time, I want to get into the battle of L.A. within the Clippers and the Lakers and who needs what more, who needs who more.
This is the most in the news Dillon Brooks has been since he was in college.
Yeah, since he was at Oregon.
I love that Oregon team. They destroyed Kansas in the Elite Eight.
But who did they lose to in the Final Four?
Yeah, Jordan Bell didn't want to box out. I know.
My North Carolina Tar Heels. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to a quick break, and when we come back from break, Dillon Brooks, Ja Morant, you're up here at the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. You are listening to the Third and Long Show. And here's your hosts, Matty Caps and KT Hepburn.
1-845-478-3272 is the number to reach us here at the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. And now, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't heard what's going on within the NBA with Ja Morant and Dillon Brooks, I'm going to break it down a little bit for you. Andre Iguodala hasn't played a minute for the Memphis Grizzlies this season. And this Thursday is obviously the trade deadline. there's a good chance that Andre Iguodala will never play for the Memphis Grizzlies. And Dillon Brooks and Ja Morant are among those in Memphis hoping that's the case. And with the deadline looming, the third-year guard didn't mince words when he was asked about the speculation of Andre Iguodala when he'll be moved. And I quote, "A guy that's on our team doesn't want to be on our team, okay? I can't wait until we find a way to trade him so we can play against him and I can show him what Memphis is really about." And you look at this, those are some big-time words coming from a third-year guard, okay, who is nothing spectacular from Memphis. But again, two of Brooks' teammates appeared to agree with the comments, and one of them was Ja Morant, who reacted with a shouting emoji on Twitter, and another guard who's really a nobody in my opinion, DeAnthony Melton. He posted a shrugging emoji, and Melton has since turned his account private. But you look at what is transpiring right now in Memphis. Speedy, I'm going to ask you two things. One, what kind of look does this look for in the in the Memphis Grizzlies organization? And two, what did you think about Ja Morant and DeAnthony Melton and Dillon Brooks on what they had to say about it?
Proves they're tough. They don't really care, and I don't mind them doing that. They're not letting it distract them. I think they're still doing well in terms of, again, playing. They're in a playoff spot right now, which I don't think anyone expected for them to be. We knew they were a young, up-and-coming team, but we didn't think they would be in a playoff spot, and I don't think they'll make it, but they still, again, I think the Blazers will get hot eventually, and they already have been hot, but still, regardless, you have guys that prove that, yeah, we don't need you. It's a good mindset to have. I mean, you look at the Nationals with Bryce Harper this year. They proved.
Is it so much we don't need you, or so much we don't want you now that you don't want to be a part of this organization?
It's both, however you want to put it. There's still a lot of players could say, all right, they could not, they could be rattled by it. They could, again, take it too far. I don't think they're taking it too far. They're just saying we don't need you, and they're proving they could play well. If they're not playing well, that's one thing, but they are playing well. So I give them credit, and again, I don't mind them saying it. If they drag it out for another month or so, maybe it's a little too much, but right now it's fine. So you don't think anything of it. You like that out of the young guards? That mindset,
I do too, to be honest with you. I mean, they haven't proven anything yet. I mean, Ja Morant, he looks like a superstar. And
right.
Speedy,
we knew that was gonna happen.
I was a big fan of Ja Morant coming out of Murray State. You knew this. Everybody knew I was a big fan of Ja Morant. I wanted him to be in New York.
I was a fan of Ja Morant in his first year before he even got all that hype.
With Murray State. I'm with you on that. I'm 100% with you with that. I love Ja Morant. I take nothing away, and I like how he clapped back at Steph Curry, too, because when you look at it, and Andre Iguodala's former teammate Steph Curry decided to chime in for whatever reason it is, the conversation, and adding a photo of Iguodala with the trophy, with the championship trophy, with a shush emoji. But Ja Morant posted it, clapped right back, and you want to know what he posted? A picture of Kevin Durant holding up one of his Finals MVP trophies, and and with a shush button and like this on Twitter. So it's been really, really great. And I don't like how Steph Curry decided to chime in out of nowhere, like, stop, dude. Like, he should have said, Ja Morant is going to be 10 times better. I don't know about 10 times, but he's going to be a better overall basketball player than Steph Curry when the time is done. I'm not saying a better shooter, because there's no better shooters than Steph Curry in the NBA right now, and there may never be as good as shooters. But overall basketball talent, Ja Morant is going to eclipse Steph Curry by a far, far margin, and that's for sure. Okay? But again, Iguodala hasn't played for the Memphis Grizzlies this season. Last summer, the Warriors sent the veteran swingman, who is making $17.2 million in his final year of his contract, and a lightly protected 2024 first-round pick to the rebuilding Grizzlies, because Golden State needed to shed salary to execute a 3-team sign-and-deal trade for D'Angelo Russell. With Iguodala away from the team, the Grizzlies have emerged as one of the surprises this season. And Monday's win over the Pistons pushed them back up to 500. They hold a 2-game lead over Portland for the number 8 seed in the Western Conference, even though I don't think that's going to hold up.
Right.
Portland's going to get hot. Yeah.
They always get good in the second.
Portland's going to get hot. And you look at it right now, what Andre Iguodala is doing, it is a distraction, but it's showing that it's not a distraction either because these young kids are fighting through what's going on and producing. Nobody thought that the Memphis Grizzlies were going to be 500 at this time. I thought from the get-go they weren't going to be good, that they were going to get another top 5 draft pick. I never expected anything from the Memphis Grizzlies. I don't know if you did, Speedy, but I didn't.
But not a playoff team.
Yeah, no, that like that's the whole thing. I didn't expect anything from them. But when you see young guys clapping back at these veteran guys like John Morant clapping back at Steph Curry and Dylan Brooks calling out Andre Iguodala, I love to see it. I love the heart of these young kids. But again, these guys are young. They don't know the game as well as these guys do. Okay? There's going to be much more drama ensuing from this. I could guarantee it leading up to Thursday. I can't wait to check tonight and tomorrow and stuff. Speedy, I'm sure you're going to be all over Twitter tonight and tomorrow checking things as well to see what's going on. But you sit back here and you think about what these kids are doing right now in a Memphis Grizzly uniform. It's remarkable. John Morant is putting up ungodly numbers with Memphis Grizzlies. John Morant is by far, and it's not even going to be close because I'm not even going to talk about it because it's just going to aggravate me. Maybe I'll save it for tomorrow. And that has to do with Rookie of the Year and Zion Williamson. And if I have to hear crap from people more and more about Zion Williamson, I'm going to lose my mind because everything he's doing right now, besides that first game, is everything that I freaking called. Okay? So, you know what? We're getting into that tomorrow, Speedy. We're going to talk about Zion Williamson
Your usual
tomorrow.
Zion Williamson rant.
Yeah, we're going to get into Zion Williamson tomorrow because I can't take people sometimes, okay? But John Morant, he's averaging 17 and 7 assists a game, 17.3 points, 7.1 assists, 3.4 rebounds. His plus minus is plus like 10 or 11. Like, he's been remarkable for this team. He's an absolute superstar. He's showing he's going to be a superstar. He's an athletic specimen. He could jump out of the roof at only 6'3". I would have loved to see this guy in the dunk contest instead of some of the guys that are in it right now. I don't want to see.
We know the dunk
I don't want to
contest
see. But I don't want to see Aaron Gordon again. Like, we get what you could do. I don't want to see Dwight Howard. We know what you could do. I want to see John Morant in the dunk contest. Someone that's only 6'3", that could really get up and almost touch the top of the freaking backboard. I mean, this is a must-see guy. Did they come to New York yet this season? I don't remember. Did John Morant come to New York yet? Do you know, Speedy, if they came?
I think so.
Okay, because that means he's not coming back then, and I would have loved to go see John Morant play the New York Knicks. That's one thing for sure. But if you tell me you think so, then I'm going to take your word for it. But yeah. But, Speedy, what do you think right now Andre Iguodala is thinking with all these comments from these young guys and what they're saying about him and hoping that they get to play him and stuff like this? Because let's be real. Andre Iguodala is on the wrong side of 30, okay? He hasn't played at all this season. He's won his championships. He's been a big part of the championships won. He's even won the Finals MVP one of the years. But what do you think he's thinking right now and feeling right now?
I don't think he cares either. I know he's just waiting for his spot. I think that's really it right now. And I don't think he cares what a young team that hasn't been close to a championship yet has to say. He's a Finals MVP. He's obviously NBA champion. And was he on the Sixers team that made it to the Finals with Iverson? Is he old enough for that?
No.
He's not that old.
No.
But again, he's...
That was with like Eric Snow and when they lost the Lakers.
Again, I know he's older. I didn't know when he got drafted and came up, but still, he has, again, championship experience. He's a trash talker. He's that kind of player. I don't think he'll care. I think that's the way he is, and the players, I think, know that they have to move on without him. And
I
think both guys are both the young players and him just don't care.
I actually think he was on that team. He came into the league in 2004. No, that was like 2001 or 2, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he came into the league in 2004, where he was selected 9th overall by the Philadelphia 76ers. Yeah, when Iverson made that shot over Tyronn Lue was 2001 or 2002, one of those seasons and stuff, and they won the first game but ended up losing the next 4.
Because I know guys are drafted young. I don't know if he was a guy that came right out of high school, if he only played a year or 2 in college. I don't know how that worked.
I got you. So, yeah. Andre Iguodala, in my opinion, needs to do something. He needs to get out of Memphis somehow. I mean, if I'm the Memphis Grizzlies, I'm holding on to him and just letting him stay away. Like, screw him. He doesn't want to come be a part of this and whatnot. Like, screw him. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's got to be doing something going forward. Right. It's simple. He's got to be doing something going forward. But, again, we're going to wait and see. The trade deadline's on Thursday. So we're going to get into that on Thursday. But, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it for our show here at the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Mr. Errol Marks and Speedy Petey, who are Down to the Wire, are up next as well. We will be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. We're going to still talk a little bit about the Super Bowl, as I didn't get into that. We're going to talk more about the 2 L.A. teams. And then we're going to talk about the NBA trade deadline as well, and maybe some baseball. We'll see what goes on here. But, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for our show here at the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.